Happy Thursday, everybody. We're ready to slide into the weekend with another great Cocktails with Cavs show. Tonight, you're going to want to stick around. We have an incredible romance and historical fiction author. She's also an educator. She's incredible. You're definitely going to want to watch this one. Let's take care of a quick little bit of housekeeping. Again, if you haven't visited our merch page, go visit us there. We have a great amount of swag, all kinds of stuff for you. I'm telling you, the official Cocktails with Cav drinking glass is just taking off because we have a lot of people drinking cocktails with us. So that's awesome. Anyway, I have my standard whiskey and 7. It's a great drink, and I'm telling you, I'm going to pick up a whiskey sponsor before this is over. And as always, we have our QR code always up in the corner. Take you straight to our tip function. And I'll tell you what, as always, anyone who supports the show so we can continue to bring you great indie authors, entertainers, and artists on the show, anybody who supports our tip function receives a free copy of my short story, one of my series on Barnes & Noble. You can go ahead and pick that up. That'll be free to you, anybody who supports the show. So we greatly appreciate it. Enough of all that. I tell you what, I hope everybody's poured a little cocktail or coffee, depending on where you're watching us in the time zone you're in around the world. But we appreciate you greatly. The audience has been so good to us. So let's get to it. Our incredible guest, J.G. MacLeod. Jen, thanks for joining us. I'm so glad to have you live from Ontario, Canada. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, awesome. No, I've been excited to have you on, having interacted with you on X. You're just wonderful to have some conversations with and definitely exploring your work on your sites. Very intrigued. Great indie author, award-winning. And we'll talk about that later, but we want to get to know you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you embarked on this journey of writing and becoming such a prolific author?
It's kind of a long story, but to shorten it, I'm like most authors where I've been writing since I was a kid, but life was just so busy and took over. I was in university, got a couple different degrees. I've been teaching for over 20 years and I have 3 kids. So all of that meant that writing wasn't the priority for a long time.
Oh, I imagine so.
Absolutely. The long story is that it just took a while for me to, I guess, prioritize it and also finish stuff, because I think that's a thing that we all struggle with. A lot of writers will write parts of things, but they don't always follow through and finish the stories. So my journey was just making a decision finally that I was going to prioritize it a bit more and actually complete the works. And that was around, I think, 2016 when I really started to write more seriously and devote time every night to it. So yeah.
Did you find that was kind of the key is establishing that routine, so, okay, I'm going to write 1,500 words tonight, or, was that your technique to kind of end that writing procrastination?
It was, yeah, because as a teacher, I teach secondary English, so I was always writing something, but it just wasn't for me. I was marking and, parenting and stuff in the evening, so it just wasn't happening. So finally, I decided that it was going to be an hour a night. So I didn't set a word count or anything. I just thought if I immersed myself for an hour each night in the craft somehow, that I would maybe finally produce or finish something. And I did. It was amazing how just a small amount of writing can add up. And it's funny because I've published 8 books that way. And in the last year and a half to 2 years, it just stopped because I wasn't actually doing that anymore. And another author on X did a challenge about maybe 5 days ago or so and said, why don't you write 1 sentence a night? And ever since she suggested that, which was similar to what I had been doing back in, say, 2016, 2017, I've written maybe 6,000 or 7,000 words in just a few days.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So it works. The small little bit of a commitment, it adds up.
I imagine so. And do you think that what was the first work that you ended up completing and settling down and having up?
Mine was Abalone. It was my debut novel, and that one was I think it's around 400 pages, so it's quite a lengthy book, but it didn't take that long doing it the way that I said. I think it might have been 4 months to actually just get the words down, and then obviously passing it off to an editor and stuff took time, but it wasn't a big thing once I committed to that small little bit every night. I think I wrote my first 3 novels within a year. Every 4 months or so, I was finishing something by doing it that way. So for me, that works. I mean, I'm not saying that works for everyone, but definitely you can complete it if.
Yeah, and a little writing, you're right, goes a long way. And it's kind of, like we always say, it's a first advice for writers, right? Is to write.
To write something. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And I was also willing to write something poorly. I think some people, they edit as they go, they edit every line, they want it to be perfect, and I was okay with it being not perfect, very imperfect, and then just working with what I had at the end of it. And my editor is a very good friend who's known me since we were both 6, and so I trust to give her something that's terrible and have her rework that in terms of her feedback, and then having to go back to the drawing board again. I'm comfortable doing that.
Yeah, and I think most writers, when they're starting out or whatever, need to realize that editing process is, no matter how perfect you think you have it, the ogre's waiting under the bridge for you.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And ironically, sometimes you're the ogre, like yourself. It's
sure.
I think sometimes you're your own worst enemy and you're your worst critic. So there's that part too. But yeah, as soon as you publish, you have to be willing to take whatever comes in terms of feedback and criticism and praise. All of it. So
right. Well, I imagine you're still teaching now, or
I am. Yeah. This is, I think, year 22.
Wow.
So,
wow. Yeah. What do you do to unwind between writing, parroting, and being an educator? I know is a tough job within itself. It's not 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. with a good lunch.
Thank you for saying that, because there is a whole sort of group of people who think that it is.
Right.
So kudos for recognizing that it's late nights and a lot of time. But unwinding, at first, the writing was that, because writing is healing and it's escapism, it's therapy, it's everything. But I also like hiking, and that's where I get a lot of my ideas when I'm on trails and cottage country, just kind of trying to take a trip every summer and getting away. So there's those kind of respites. I like gardening, which is also, again, being outdoors and, just kind of, it's therapeutic too. So I find those things give me inspiration and also just a break away from all of the other responsibilities.
Oh, sure. I imagine. Yeah, it kind of clear the mind a bit. So other things besides grading
work.
And
dealing with teenagers.
Yeah, right. That's I had a couple of those myself. That's why I host Cocktails with Cav.
That's your break.
Yeah. That's I tend to drink a lot since the teenagers. No, But I have to tell you, I was fascinated because I know you have a lot of, and I'll put it up on the screen for the viewers to see. You have a lot of great works, in particular, some series that you started out with, and why don't you tell us a bit, excuse me, it is the cocktails. Tell me a little bit about them, because I know you won some awards on some of the books themselves. So please, by all means.
Yeah. The first trilogy that I did was the result of travel. So a friend of mine and we went to Ireland, and we were just, we rented a car and we drove around and stayed at B&Bs and stuff like that. So while I was there, I was sort of taking note of all of the real historical people that were mentioned at a lot of these sites that we visited. So whether they were, castles or museums and so on, I got thinking and inspired to write the story of this one person in particular. So Lady Ellen, we were at a place called Kylemore Abbey, and when you go in the entrance to that, it tells the whole history of her real life. And I thought that'd be a fascinating story to tell, what it was like for her, because the family, the father gambled away their estate and was a, sort of an abusive or neglectful father. And I thought that would be neat to tell that story. So I was already jotting stuff down in a notebook before I even left the country.
Oh,
and
wow.
When I came home, it sort of wrote itself, to be honest. The words sort of poured out. And I think I wrote the first 2 books in the series. So Lady Ellen and Two Paths were both published in 2018. And then I think maybe a year and a half later, I finished the series. So it was
that's amazing.
Beloved by people, but it's not my favorite thing that I've ever written, but I still, because of the connection to my trip and everything, it means a lot.
Right, I imagine so. Yeah, and it sounds like definitely an interesting story, and I know you have that historical edge to it always, is a wonderful tale, that's for sure. But so 3 books in that series, and they look like they've been kind of rather successful on on sale and with ratings, and so I know you moved on to the next series, and is that where you kind of hit your stride with the rom-com series?
It's I kind of think of the whole thing almost as just a personal progression, because the first book I wrote was more of a healing journey, and then once I kind of purged that, I didn't need to, and I didn't want to write stuff that was so, I guess, like the melancholy, right? I wanted something lighter. So the historical romance was that, but then it progressed to the point even more where I wanted to try comedy. And as soon as I started writing that, I thought that's for me. That the characters, the tone, just everything about it was fun, and it was a great. It was the great escape when I would come home from work and have that hour or whatever to write something that made me laugh.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and so the first one in that series was The Future Bride, and
that's right. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, tell us about the story for sure.
It kind of came about similar to Ireland. It was just a weird mashup of things happened in my life. So my oldest daughter was studying karate, and I was the driver every weekend and to her competitions and her practices and stuff. And I started to take notes. So every time I had this little notebook, and I would write down everything she was doing and learning and all the moves and stuff. And then we went on a hiking trip up northern Ontario. And again, it was sort of the atmosphere and that I started to take notes. And then at the same time, I was just doing a lot of research into my own family tree. And all 3 things just combined. I thought, what would happen if the MacLeods, kind of did a mashup with comedy and karate and time travel, and it's a whole mess of stuff. And it's fun, and people seem to like it the best too. So I think that's when you've found your passion when what you're enjoying the most, other people are also enjoying the most. So it's motivating to keep writing it.
Yeah, and I could see when you said with the popularity, yeah, because your ratings have ballooned on Amazon, obviously.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, and that's the first book in the series, and I believe you have the second one out called The Past Love, I believe.
The Past Love, yeah. Some people sort of assume or think that it's a prequel because it takes place a year before, but I'm writing the third right now, and when that's released, all the sort of the mystery of the time travel and that will be solved, and people will then realize that The Past Love, even though it takes place a year earlier, is actually a sequel, not a prequel. So they do go in the order that they're written in for a reason, because all those clues are being laid so that the reader, when they have the final conclusion, it will all make sense. And hopefully their minds will be blown a little bit. I think I've been meeting with a physics teacher and a biology teacher and a bunch of other things. So
getting a little research in, right?
Yeah, it's going to be big.
That's right. Readers, get with it. Just because it happened before the first book, it's time travel. It doesn't mean it's a prequel.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we're allowed to mess with time.
That's exactly right. Well, I tell you that you are doing very well with the series, and it's fascinating. And they are some great stories, the way you laid them out. And you, are you working on anything now that we should know about?
The third one in the series, I'm at about 300 pages, so it's close, and it's been just over 2 years since I've published. So I'm eager to get this thing done and then hand it off to my editor and get it out there. So it's called The Once and Future Love, and it will end the series, like I said. I also have a couple other works in progress on the go. I've got a book called A Simple pages, and it's going to be my first attempt to write something. I call it clean,
right?
I don't tend to write that way. So it's going to be more Hallmark style for people who kind of crave that type of writing. It's a huge challenge for me. I don't, like I said, typically write that style, so it's a challenge. Every project I say to myself, what haven't I done? What can I challenge myself to do this time? And I wrote a book called A Moment in Time, and that was entirely a challenge to myself. I said, well, I've never written in 2 points of view before. I've never written a male point of view before. So let's do it. And I did. And it was sort of sci-fi and stuff too. So yeah, each project I grow a bit more and try something new.
Oh, well, I tell you what, we're looking for. When do you think it'll be out? I'm looking forward to it.
It's going. So in the last 3 or 4 days, I've written probably 7,000 words. So I feel like my motivation is really high right now. I'm hoping end of January, if my editor can get it back to me, that would be the goal. Soon.
Amazing. All right. That's right. Scoop on Cocktails with Cav. That's what we like around here. No. Well, and tell me, you're entirely self-published now, right, on Amazon?
Yes.
Have you had any experiences with, actually working with a publishing house or?
So when I started, I think the world of publishing, it keeps changing, right? It's always evolving. There was just a small imprint that Amazon offered initially, but it closed down. And so then I just went full self-publishing. I feel like I'm just an impatient person. When I get a project done, I want to see it out there in the hands of readers. So I would never be able to wait the 2-3 years, that it takes sometimes once you hand it off to someone to see it in print. So that's my personal preference, is to just go the self-publishing route. Plus, I like dabbling and learning marketing and all that side of it. So, and then sharing that with people. So I think that's another reason for the self-publishing. It just keeps that all in-house.
Yeah, I think that's the key, really. When you talk about the marketing, and people need to realize with the indie author, it's, that's a huge part of the job, obviously, to get your work in front of people.
It's daily.
Yeah, sure. It's a grind.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Well, when you speak of teaching other people or kind of assisting other people in some of the knowledge you've been able to garner over the years. So what are you doing in that aspect now? As far as,
So just things like what didn't work, I think is a huge thing, that just to pass that on to people. So back in 2018, the sheer amount of dollars spent on ads that weren't effective because I didn't understand how to set an ad up, how to make that work. I tell people now, I don't pay to market my books, they pay me. So in other words, if I'm not breaking even or making money, I'm doing the ad wrong.
Right.
But it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of, I guess, learning and savvy, and I lost a lot at the start, but I don't anymore. So I just kind of share that when I can. And I also do stuff through Fiverr where I offer different author services, such as editing, beta reading, book promotion, all that kind of stuff now too.
Right. And where do you offer that at? Is that directly on your website?
Through Fiverr.
Or?
I think there's links on there. Yes, there are on the homepage of my website. At the bottom are links to it. And as well, Fiverr, is a platform just for offering freelance services. So when I kind of got into this and I saw the things that I initially didn't know or the things I needed, I thought, other people might also be looking for those kind of professional services from somebody who's done the trial and error, and maybe they want professional feedback from somebody who's taught for 20 years, right? It's a different type of feedback than your friend. It's kind but constructive.
And I think you said a big key, Jen, really. I mean, you're right. The knowledge of what not to do, and avoid that trial and error and not reinvent the wheel, has to be extremely helpful. So yeah, it's a great thing and I'm sure your teaching skills would help, because we have some hard-headed indie authors out there,
Yes. Yes, very much so.
Right.
But you have to be ready. That's the huge thing with everything, right? You have to be ready, and when you are, I think X is great for that, because there's such a supportive community that the advice and the support's there if you're ready for it. So I love that platform. I've invested a lot of time to make my profile what it is, just to be supportive of people in the community. And it's reciprocal. People give back what they put in, and I find it very positive, that the whole writing community on there.
It really is, and I've just been kind of proud to be a small part of X, with this show, and because heck, that's how I met you, Jen.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and the writing community really is and is being very supportive. So it's something for indie authors and other entertainers and artists to think about, and
absolutely
about that networking and that engagement, and taking advice, because most people have been at the grind a while and can help you avoid some of the pitfalls for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And not being afraid to reach out and ask questions. So any newbies watching this who are on the platform, don't be afraid to ask questions and reach out. And there's kind people who will share sort of the stuff that they've done that didn't work and recommend things. So
absolutely. Golly. Well, Jen, I am so appreciative that you agreed to come on the show and kind of share your backstory and all your great works that are on your Amazon page that are for sale, because you just did a wonderful job with the series. But I'm so appreciative that you came on and agreed to kind of tell everybody, especially that last part too. It's very helpful for the writing community.
Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, it was a great opportunity.
Oh, no, I'll tell you, the pleasure's all mine. And please, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, go follow Jen over on X. JG MacLeod, author. Wonderful person to engage with, wonderful person to give you advice, like she said, and help with the writing community that's across X. And please, by all means, if you don't, I have pointing problems sometimes with the camera, but by all means, please go at the top of the screen. We've had up all show. QR code will take you directly to Jen's Amazon author page where you can check out all of her great works. And they are all highly rated, I might add. Very good job. You have a lot of reviews and a lot of great ratings, and they're wonderful works. So please, ladies and gentlemen, go check that out as well, and support Jen in her quest to continue to be an incredible award-winning author. That's for sure. And thank you so much for being a teacher and a mom. And you've added the third hardest job in the world, probably, indie author. So, but I certainly appreciate you coming on, Jen. I really do. And hope you enjoyed the evening with us with Cocktails with Cav.
I did.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll see you soon, ladies and gentlemen. Again, JG MacLeod, go visit her right at her Amazon page, and please go follow her on X. JG MacLeod author is her handle, and she'll be waiting to help the rest of the writing community. So
I'll be prepared.
That's it. Thanks so much, Jen. Well, again, cheers.